I thought I found a home. I was so wrong, r/scarystories. The cold November air bit at my face as I stood at Clara's grave. 2 years. 2 years since the drunk driver, 2 years since my world imploded. The grief was a constant companion, a dull ache in my chest that never truly faded. Everyone told me I needed a fresh start. A new place, new scenery, a chance to rebuild. They didn't understand. Clara was my home, but maybe, just maybe, they were right. I started looking online, rural properties, places where the silence was deafening and the stars were the only streetlights. I needed isolation, a sanctuary from the endless reminders of what I had lost. I scrolled through countless listings, cookie-cutter suburban houses, cramped city apartments, and dilapidated farmhouses that looked like they'd starred in a horror movie. Nothing felt right. Then I saw it. A sprawling Victorian on the outskirts of a small town in upstate New York. A diamond in the rough, the listing proclaimed. It was undeniably beautiful, with its intricate woodwork, towering gables, and a wraparound porch that seemed to beckon me. The pictures showed a house that had seen better days, paint peeling, overgrown gardens, but underneath the neglect I saw potential. I saw home. I contacted the real estate agent, a woman named Martha Abernathy. Her voice was warm and reassuring over the phone, like a favorite aunt. She was eager to show me the property. The drive to the town of Havenwood was long and lonely. As I pulled into the driveway, the house loomed before me, larger and more imposing than the pictures had suggested. It was undeniably beautiful, but there was also a sense of something else. A weight, a presence that settled on my shoulders as I stepped out of the car. Martha was waiting on the porch, her smile as bright and welcoming as her voice. She was an elderly woman with a kind face and twinkling blue eyes. She reminded me of my grandmother. "Elias, so good to finally meet you," she said, extending a hand. Her grip was surprisingly firm. "Welcome to Havenwood. Welcome home." As we walked through the house, Martha pointed out the original hardwood floors, the stained glass windows, the intricate details that had been preserved over the years. The house was undeniably charming, but it was also undeniably cold. A damp, bone-chilling cold that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. "It needs some work, of course," Martha said, gesturing to a water stain on the ceiling. "But the bones are good, solid." I nodded, trying to ignore the growing unease that was settling in my stomach. There was something off. A faint, musty smell that lingered in the air, a feeling of being watched even when we were alone. In the living room, a sudden draft caused the curtains to billow inward, even though the windows were closed. Martha chuckled nervously. "Drafty old house," she said. "Always has been." We went upstairs, the floorboards creaking ominously under our feet. The bedrooms were large and empty, the silence broken only by the wind whistling through the gaps in the window frames. In one of the bedrooms, I noticed a small wooden rocking horse tucked away in a corner. It was old and worn, its paint chipped and faded, but it had a certain charm. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. "That's been here for years," Martha said, her voice a little too high-pitched. "Probably belongs to one of the previous owners. I'll have it removed before you move in if you like." "No, it's fine," I said, placing the rocking horse back in the corner. "It can stay." As we were leaving, Martha mentioned the price. It was surprisingly low, almost too good to be true. I couldn't help but wonder why. "It's been on the market for a while," Martha explained. "Not everyone appreciates the unique character of this house." I looked back at the Victorian, its dark windows staring out at me like empty eyes. The unease I had felt earlier intensified, but I ignored it. I needed this. I needed a place to escape, a place to start over. "I'll take it," I said. The first few weeks were spent cleaning, painting, and trying to make the house feel like a home. I scrubbed the grime off the floors, patched the holes in the walls, and planted flowers in the overgrown garden. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. Strange things started happening. Doors would open and close on their own. Objects would move from one place to another. I would hear faint whispers in the middle of the night, too soft to make out, but undeniably there. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination, the product of stress and grief. But the occurrences became more frequent, more unsettling. One evening, I was sitting in the living room reading, when the rocking horse I had seen in the bedroom suddenly appeared in front of me, rocking gently back and forth, even though there was no breeze. I jumped up, my heart pounding in my chest. I stared at the rocking horse, my mind racing. There had to be a rational explanation. A draft, a loose floorboard, something. But I knew deep down that there wasn't. I tried talking to the neighbors. Mr. Henderson, an elderly man who lived next door, was friendly enough, but whenever I asked him about the house, he became evasive. It's an old house, he would say, his eyes darting away. Seen a lot of things over the years. His daughter, Emily Henderson, was openly hostile. She glared at me whenever I saw her, and one day, she confronted me in my driveway. "You shouldn't have bought that house," she said, her voice cold and hard. "It's cursed. Everyone knows it. Cursed." I scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous. You'll see," she said, her eyes narrowed. "You'll all see. You should leave while you still can." Her words haunted me. I tried to ignore them, but they echoed in my mind, fueling my growing fear and paranoia. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, surrounding me, suffocating me. They whispered my name, Elias, over and over again. They whispered about Clara, about my loss, about my pain. One night I woke up to find myself standing in the living room, staring at the rocking horse. It was rocking violently, its painted eyes seeming to bore into me. The whispers were deafening, filling my head with images of Clara, of the accident, of death. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I was paralyzed, trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't escape. Then I heard a voice, a clear, distinct voice speaking directly into my mind. "You belong here, Elias," the voice said. "You belong with us." I stumbled backward, tripping over the rocking horse. I scrambled to my feet and ran out of the house into the cold night air. I didn't stop running until I reached the town's only gas station, miles away. I called Sheriff Brody, a weary-looking man with a permanent scowl etched on his face. I tried to explain what was happening, about the whispers, the objects moving on their own, the voice. He listened patiently, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. "Mr. Thorne," he said when I was finished, "I understand you've been through a lot lately. Losing your wife, it can do things to a person. But I think you're just imagining things. This town doesn't have much excitement as it is, but cursed houses are just in storybooks, but I'm not imagining it," I protested. "I know what I heard. I know what I saw." "I'll send a deputy out to check on your house," Sheriff Brody said, "but I think you just need to get some rest. Maybe talk to someone." I went back to the house, dreading every step. The deputy had found nothing, of course. Everything was quiet, still normal. But I knew the house was waiting for me, watching me. I started researching the history of the house. I spent hours at the local library, poring over old newspaper articles and town records. Sarah, the librarian, was a kind woman who seemed genuinely concerned about me. "This house has been through a lot," she said, handing me a stack of documents. "There are stories." The articles told of a family who had lived in the house in the late 1800s. They had been a wealthy and prominent family, but tragedy had struck them repeatedly. First, their young daughter had died in a mysterious accident. Then, the father had gone insane, claiming that he was being tormented by voices and visions. Finally, he had murdered his wife and then taken his own life. The house had been vacant for years after that, until another family had moved in. They too had experienced strange occurrences, and eventually they had fled the town, leaving everything behind. The articles mentioned whispers, shadows, and a feeling of overwhelming dread. They described a house that was not just haunted, but actively malevolent. I felt a chill run down my spine. The stories mirrored my own experiences so closely that it was impossible to dismiss them as coincidence. As I delved deeper into the history of the house, the line between reality and nightmare began to blur. I would have vivid flashbacks to my life with Clara, memories so real that I could almost feel her touch, hear her voice. But then, the memories would twist and distort, becoming grotesque parodies of my happiness. Clara's smile would become a sneer, her voice would turn into a mocking whisper. The house was preying on my grief, using my memories to torment me. One night I woke up to find Clara standing at the foot of my bed. She was beautiful, radiant, just as I remembered her. "Elias," she said, her voice soft and loving, "I've missed you so much." I reached out to her, tears streaming down my face. "Clara," I whispered, "is it really you?" She smiled and nodded. "Come with me." "Elias," she said, "we can be together again." She held out her hand. I took it and she led me out of the bedroom, down the stairs, into the living room. The house was different now, filled with light and warmth. The musty smell was gone, replaced by the sweet scent of Clara's perfume. We danced in the living room, laughing and twirling just like we used to. I felt happy, truly happy for the first time in years. But then the music stopped. The lights flickered and Clara's face began to change. Her smile twisted into a grotesque grin. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "You can't escape me, Elias," she hissed. "You belong here forever." I tried to pull away, but her grip was like iron. The house began to shift and change around me, the walls closing in, the floor tilting beneath my feet. I was trapped in a vortex of terror, unable to distinguish between reality and hallucination. I woke up the next morning on the floor of the living room, covered in sweat. The house was silent still, but the air was heavy with a sense of dread. I knew it was getting stronger. I knew it wouldn't be long before it consumed me completely. I went to Sheriff Brody again, desperate for help. I showed him the articles I had found, the stories of the house's dark history. I begged him to believe me. This time, he listened more intently. He had heard the rumors about the house, of course, but he had always dismissed them as local folklore. But seeing the desperation in my eyes, hearing the fear in my voice, he began to wonder if there was more to it than he had thought. "I'll look into it, Mr. Thorne," he said. "I'll see what I can find." Sheriff Brody started his own investigation. He talked to the townspeople, reviewed old police reports, and even consulted with a local historian. He learned about the house's dark past, about the tragedies that had occurred within its walls, about the whispers and the shadows. He discovered that several people had disappeared from the town over the years, people who had lived near the house or had shown an interest in its history. Their disappearances had never been solved, but now, Sheriff Brody began to suspect that they were connected to the house. He decided to search the house. He gathered a team of deputies and went to the Victorian, armed with warrants and a growing sense of dread. But the house was empty. There was no sign of Elias, no sign of anything out of the ordinary. The deputies searched every room, every closet, every nook and cranny, but they found nothing. Sheriff Brody felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that something was wrong, terribly wrong. He knew that Elias was in danger, but he didn't know where to look. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Elias was never found. The case went cold. The townspeople whispered about the house, about the curse, about the man who had disappeared. Sheriff Brody never forgot about Elias. He continued to investigate, but he never found any clues. He started to believe that the house had somehow swallowed Elias whole, that it had claimed him as another victim. Years later, I still live in the house. The whispers are constant now, a chorus of voices that never cease. I see Clara all the time, but she's not the Clara I remember. She's a twisted, malevolent version of my wife, a puppet of the house. I've tried to leave, but I can't. The house won't let me. It has me trapped, body and soul. I am its caretaker now, its guardian. I ensure that it is properly maintained, that its hunger is sated. Sometimes I see people walking down the street, gazing at the house with curiosity. They see its beauty, its charm, its potential. They don't see the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. They don't hear the whispers that echo within its walls. I want to warn them, to tell them to stay away, but I can't. The house won't allow it. One day, a young couple came to the house, accompanied by a real estate agent. I watched them from the window, my heart aching with a mixture of pity and dread. The real estate agent was Martha Abernathy. She smiled at the couple, her eyes twinkling with the same false kindness that she had shown me. "Welcome," she said, her voice as warm and reassuring as ever. "Welcome home." And I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that the cycle would continue. The house would claim another victim. The darkness would spread, because the house always gets what it wants.